Okay, now on with the loading of the bullets. This is here again in 9 millimeters, and we ended with flaring the bullet, the shell, the brass. Now let's see if I can get close enough and let you see that there is a slight, very slight expansion at the top, and it's just enough to hold a bullet. So let's see if we can set this thing up and set a bullet in it and see if it will set there. And if it will, that's all we need to do, is just to set that bullet there. And if that will sit, that's good enough. Alright, it's expanded properly. Now, what we need to do now is go to the book. And the book is a standard book that this one is by Spear, and it's the reloading manual. It's number 14, and I have turned to the page which has 9 millimeter Luger on it, and that's what I'm going to be loading. And if you can see that it has all the specs that the 9 millimeter shell is supposed to have. And what we want to do, of course, is to go over to the page where we have the bullets. Now we have a hollow point, the GD HP hollow point, and the round nose, and I'm going to be doing the round nose. So it's 115 grain. So what we see here is that the outside maximum diameter, which is called a COAL, is 1.135, and that's what we will measure to get to make sure that the bullet is seated at least a little bit below that. That is the maximum. Now we go on down the page, and I'm using bullseye, and if we go across the page, we see that the minimum here, and we go up to the top, the minimum weight starting charge is 4.2, and here it gives the velocity, and then the maximum, if we go down to that, is 4.7. So we'll be using 4.2 as minimum and 4.7 as maximum. Now I have loaded some and shot the 4.2, and it doesn't always make the slide go all the way back, so I have decided to go up 2/10 of a grain and make it 4.4. Now that's what I am loading now. Look at the balance. You can see that this little sliding bar, we have zeroed the weights on it. And this is the pan. We go over to the bar, and this is the damper in it. And if you notice, it's below the center. Now that means we need to zero in the balance. So there is a wheel here that I will turn, and whichever way is the way that I should turn it to make that zero in is what I should do. So now I am turning it, and it's coming back towards zero, if you notice. Alright. Now we've got it right on zero. Do you see that mark there? That's what we want. Let me see if I can get it a little closer and show you that it's on zero. Now that's zeroing your balance before you do anything else. And then now that the balance is zeroed, what we want to do now is we want to set the weight that we want on this little bar here. And I'll try to get close enough that we can see what we're doing. We move this over to 4. There's 5, and there's 4. So that's the 4 grains, and we want 0.4. And so we're going to move this over now to 0.4. Now if we look, we see that it's at 4.4, and we notice now that the bar is down. So what we want to do is whenever we put the powder in the little pan, it should balance right up to 0. Now we're going to go over here and set the next part of it, which is the powder dispenser, and I'll try to get some light on it here and show you how it works. The powder dispenser holds the powder in this green plastic container, and on the front side, if I can get the light adjusted where you can see it, there is a little screw knob. And what this does is, if you could see inside of here, there's a cup, and as we move the knob counterclockwise, it opens up the cup. When we close the knob down, it makes the cup smaller. So if our weight is not correct, then obviously we can adjust it with this little knob. There is an little knob that locks it whenever you get it where you want it. Well, I have adjusted it to 4.4, and to check it, what we will do is we'll put the little container here underneath the powder dispenser, and we'll pull the lever to see to dispense a certain amount of powder, and hopefully it's 4.4. But then we'll put it onto the scale and we'll measure that to see if it's correct. Okay, the next tool we have is the loading tray, and as you see, it's a 5x10 tray, and what we'll do is I'll put a shell upward in every one of these spots, and then I'll after I do that, I'll come back and show you what we do next. Now I have all of the tray loaded up with 50 of the shells. So our next step is to look down inside to make sure that there's no debris or leftover cob pieces inside, and we'll get a bright light and look down inside of each one of them. And I'm going to do this just a minimum on the video, but you'll look in each one to make sure that everything is fine. And of course, later on as we do our powder, we'll be looking again to make sure that the powder is even in all of them, so that we won't have any double loads or anything. Now I have dispensed a portion and put it into the little tray and set it on the scale, and let's look and see where it is reading. Then it does look like that we are on 0, which means that we do have 4.4, and that's what we'll dispense into the tray of shells which are here. And we will be putting each shell, pick it up, put it underneath the dispenser, and then we'll pull the lever down for each shell until we get all of the shells full. Okay, the next thing I'll be doing is that I'll be taking the shell and I'll be putting it on the little dispenser. This is a little plastic, like a funnel, that comes out of the powder dispenser, and I'll pull the handle down, clicking it both ways, and if you look now, you'll see some powder in there. And we'll go through this now one at a time, putting powder in them. And after about 10 or so pulls, we will go back and weigh a sample to see if our dispenser has changed any from our 4.2 grain setting. Correction, I said 4.2 grain, I meant 4.4. 4.2 is the minimum. We are measuring 4.4. Now I have done 20 of these, and what we want to do is to look down in these to see if they're all pretty even, which it appears that they are. And since we have done 20, we're going to stop and we're going to do a reweigh to see if the weight is still the same. So now we got a dispensing of powder in the little pan, and we're going to go over and see if the weight is the same, and it is still the same, so we're okay. We have no problem. We can continue on with our filling up of the remainder of the shells, and as you see, we've got about 30 more to go to finish. Okay, now we have all 50 of the shells filled with the powder with 4.4 grains, and we're going to hold it up to the light again, and we're going to look closely and make sure that they all are pretty much even, because we do not want an overfill at all. It looks like they're all okay. Now for the loading, or the seating the bullet. Now we have the bullet seater right here, and it's already mounted and it's already set. And I'll have another video on how to set all of these dies later, but right now it's set, and we have the shell holder ready to go. So now we want to put a shell in it, and we want to put a bullet in it, and it should sit as we said before with no problem, and this should be seated all the way in, and when I pull this down it should seat, and we have the bullet seated now. The only thing now we have to do is to measure this to see if it's seated at the right depth or not. So we will take our calipers out and see if it's at least 1.135 or less. Here's our digital calipers, and what we want to do is take them out. We turn them on, and we have to measure this bullet to see its length, and it must be, otherwise we're going to have to reseat every one of those that we so we want to do one. So it is reading now 1.13.3, so it's less. It's 2 thousandths less than the overall length maximum. So we're fine. Now we're ready to go with seating the remainder of the bullets. What I have now is I've got a handful of bullets laying on the towel, and the bullet that we just did is ready to be filed away into a box, and we're going to put it into an old used box that we will just like we're reusing our brass, we're reusing our boxes. Now from now on we will go from across here, doing 5 at a time in the row, so that we'll be real consistent, and then when we're finished we will have 50 of the 9mm bullseye powder, 4.4 grains, and we'll be ready to shoot. And that's the end of this video.